Well, good afternoon, and welcome to the Bioengineering Seminar Series. I'm actually very pleased to introduce Dr. Shesh Rai, who is a professor in the medical school, right? Yeah. And he's actually the Wendell Sherry Endowed Chair in Clinical Trial Research and a professor of bioinformatics and biostatistics. He's also the director of the biostatistics core, which serves all of the, actually all of the medical school in also Belmont campus, of course, in statistical analysis and research. So we're very happy to have you here. And Professor Rai is going to talk to us about this topic here, so I'll let you introduce the topic. Please, let's welcome our speaker.
Thank you so much for a good introduction, and good day everybody. Thanks for coming. I hope you're not too hungry, so that there are a lot less formulas. Being a statistics talk, so it should go easy. So my focus here is the group classification for high dimensional data. There is a difference between high throughput data and high dimensional data, and I will demonstrate through an example. That's in that which compares the cervical cancer, lung cancer, and controls. So I'll start with the introduction. I'll give you some motivating examples and the performance measurement. Like when you do the classifications, some measurement that you do, you have seen it in the basic statistics class. There are two methods that has been established: relief and eye relief. That I will describe briefly about it, and the methods we will compare with it. And then we propose a new method. Then we go with the application, and then we extend the application from 2 group to 3 group comparison. And then some discussions and then some future work. If you have any question during the talk, please feel free to interrupt, because I really like if the people are involved in the talk rather just for the sake of credit you are here. So in a brief list, the differential scanning calorimetry DSC has been applied to identify protein denaturization patterns, it's called the thermograms, in the blood plasma samples that are indicative of disease status. So basically, the DSC is somehow related to the disease status. That's what it is here. The data set generated by DSC are high dimensional, due to which it becomes difficult to analyze and classify thermogram patterns. The purpose of any classification method is to predict the class outcome on the basis of existing data of known classes. It's called the training set. In the example that we are talking about, we have a 97 control samples and 39 cases samples. So the controls are the normal group and then the cervical group. And the DSC analysis is based on the human blood plasma. So the data that show the thermogram of plasma normally reflect the sum of thermograms of the component proteins, and in the cervical appears different in amplitude and denaturation temperature. Okay, so how the DSC produces the data? In this case, here's a diagram. This one I got it from Dr. Nicola Garbett. She runs this lab and she generates the data set. So the patient's blood plasma samples is taken here. And then the plasma is placed in a chamber that heated to the melting point. So you put it here and you heat it. And then, so for the healthy, it gives you one pattern, and then the cervical cancer, it gives you another pattern. This could be cervical cancer or other group. So this gives you these 2 different patterns. So to go more deeper into it, although it's somebody else should explain, but see what I can explain here. So basically you have these two chambers here, and the heat temperature delta T is measured between these two. So two identical chambers heated at a constant rate by main heaters. The temperature difference between the chambers delta T is monitored. And an endo-exothermic transformation in the sample will result in a temperature difference. Chambers kept in a thermal balance by feedback heaters. Adjust the power supply to feedback heaters to delta T is equal to 0. So you want to maintain the temperature, so you put some the heaters so that the delta T is close to 0. I may not be able to give you more than this information because you may be bioengineering folks, you may know more than me. Okay, so here is the excess specific heat capacity, we call the HC, and this is the temperature. So this is the pattern. If it's a normal, that's what you should be able to see the pattern like this. The feedback, the power is proportional to the heat capacity of the sample, i.e. the amount of heat required to change the temperature of a sample related to the structure of the sample. DSC profile area is the enthalpy of process, i.e. the total energy of protein unfolding. The melting temperature Tm is taken from the midpoint of the profile. That's the midpoint from the profile. Key characteristics of DSC, traditionally used to study thermally induced protein foldings, unfolding, transitions of purified biomolecules. It's sensitive to extensive properties of the system. Protein within the mixture are resolved with respect to their thermal stability. Each protein has a characteristic profile reflecting unique structural elements and the molecular forces. DSC is extremely sensitive to interactions that affect thermal stability, interactions and modifications associated with clinical status and affect the thermal properties of plasma properties. So the clinical status and the signatures, the clinician is thinking, the scientist is thinking is there, and that's what statistics is going to help find if there is a association between these DSC signatures and the clinical status. So this can, the DSC test, this can also be done in the plasma concentrations, fresh frozen samples, these are the other things that DSC depends on. This area is growing. Here are some recent publications. I won't go over this one, we have said about this. So let's go over on this one. So we have 97 samples and 39. So 97 controls and 39 cases. Now, this is all the data, you put it all this one together. This is for the controls and this is for the cases. There is some departure here. That departure is not that big here. But this could be due to the extreme temperature. So it could be some kind of outliers. So if I say that I'm not interested into this portion, I truncate here and I truncate here. So I look at the middle portion of this one in this group and middle portion of this one in this group. It may be hard to say that these two groups are different. Right? So if I delete these outliers, as I said, take this one out, and from here this one out and this one out, and just compare these two and these two, from naked eyes, you just cannot say that which group belongs to what, which is cancer group and which is control group. Now in this one, for every 0.1 degree temperature change, we have heat capacity measured. And on every sample, we have 2 duplicate measures as well. So the idea is when you have a large data set, rather than jumping in there and let the machine dictate, you should understand the data first and then try to reduce the dimension. So first what we did is we reduced the dimension. So we come up with a way so that we can truncate for the two ends. And also because the temperature goes from 45.1, 45.2, 45.3. You see, this is a monotone structure is there. It goes up and then it comes back. So doesn't matter whether it's 0.1 or 0.2, I can average it again actually. So then I can reduce the data further, so then I can make some conclusion. So in this setting, so in this one you have the whole data set is there. In this one what we have is, we group those data sets and we, for each time point, we put in those data sets. Again the trend is there for things, but you see there's a somewhat separation between normal and the circle. So red and black, the blacks are more on the top and the red ones more in the bottom. But again, there are some departures here. Now, so that's a data set, right? Now for that data set, so basically this data set, I want to develop a method to classify it. Okay. Now to classify it, develop a classification, what you need is, you always need these things. You need a sensitivity, you need a specificity, you need a positive predictive value, you need a negative predictive value, you also need few other things, overall accuracy and few other things you need it too. Not only you need these quantities, and I think you should always put this is just a tutorial kind of things. So you always what you know you put in here, and then you are going to predict to put it here. So then you have, this one gives you sensitivity, this one gives the specificity, this one leads to your the PPV, and this one leads to NPV. Now I'm going to go, anybody has any question on this? This is a tutorial, this is a simple thing, right? How do we find the confidence intervals based on these ones? If I have to find the confidence interval for the sensitivity, how do I find confidence interval? So to find a confidence interval, you are using some threshold. To find the cases and controls. Keep on changing that threshold. If you change that threshold, one is optimal threshold, just called the J statistics, J index. Okay. Then you can use the J index. Then you can get some confidence interval for the sensitivity and specificity. Also, what you could do here is you do the bootstrap samples. So you have the generate from the same data set. What you do is you know the distributions behind it. So you know what is the prevalence of the cases and prevalence of controls, and then generate a new data set. On that new data set, you do the bootstrap samples, and based on that bootstrap samples, you use the optimal cutoff criteria to come up with the thresholds. And then based on optimal, you have different values of sensitivity and specificity. And based on that bootstrap confidence interval, you can come up with the confidence interval for sensitivity, specificity, PPV and NPV. And because you are engineering associated folks, this is very important, not only give the one estimate, but also it's good to provide the confidence interval, 95% confidence intervals. Okay, let's go back to this. So now I change the topic, I go back. What has been done to a similar data set somewhere else? So the relief was first introduced in 1992 and identify a hybrid signature through the combination of both the genetic and clinical markers of the gene expression data. Perform better than other methods, including 70 gene signature clinical markers alone and sub-consensus criteria. Okay. So I'm not going to go more details, and you may not be interested in it. But let's see how this method works. So you have two groups again here. One group, so the D is the data set, YN and GN, It's called the training data set. Yn is the nth data sample in the ith component, is in the ith measurement of the nth sample. So that means if you are measuring the 20 genes, so the same individual, you have gene 1 and gene 2 and gene 3 and gene 4. Now you have two groups. So you have cases and you have controls. So you find the distance, some kind of a distance between these two groups, and based on distance, come up with a score. So define the Yn. Based on the Yn, you define the distance rho n, which is some distance measure of Yn minus Nm. Nm is like the nearest miss. It's called the nearest miss, and that's called the nearest hit. Miss and hit means one is the case and one is control. Based on that one, based on this distance, you define it, and then what you do here is, do for the dy, you define overall, and the case the dimension of y, okay. And if the rho n is greater than 0, only if Yn is correctly classified by a one nearest neighbor classifier. What we need to do here is, we need to, because for the different k, we have to optimize this function. So that's again, this is a distance measure, then this is the weighted distance, because I may not want to give too much weight to the observation that's outliers. So I can choose the weight that I want to, and then based on that, I can maximize this one and get this value to classify. The optimization scheme in the above equation can be solved by the closed form solution. One major drawback relief, the nearest neighbors are defined in the original feature space, which is highly unlikely to be the ones in the weighted space, which is the case in microarray data analysis. So basically here is more like, this is a Cannon type approach, but it's slightly different than Cannon. Then we define another approach, that's the iterative I relief. I relief iterative. This was proposed in 2006. This is something similar, but in this case we have this score we define. This is the distance. Then based on that one we define these probabilities. What is the probability that you belong to one group versus other group? So this is the overall space. You sum the all probabilities, and this is the probability of that the Yi belongs to that space. So based on this conditional probability, this is for ith individual, this ith individual, this is if it's the miss and this is hit. So what is the chance that you belong to this group, what is chance in that belongs to that group? Based on those two, you calculate these two probabilities, and f is a kernel function. So it's just like you have some kind of a density function you can use, or some kind of, and then based on these you define two probabilities, and based on these two probabilities you classify. I won't go much details of this one because you may not be interested. If you are interested, we have more about this technique in our paper. So I am going to stop this one there because, okay. So now going back to our data set. So what we wanted to do here is, if you go back, see these figures. From this one, we are looking for some distributional assumptions. Can we, for each time points, like I want to fit some probabilistic model. The one probabilistic model is natural, is a normal distribution. For each time points, can I see that this data is normally distributed, this data is normally distributed? So to see all those things, this maybe is somewhere valid here, somewhere valid not there. So we propose some transformations. So you have data set, you reduce the dimension and you propose a transformation. So this is the transformation you propose. First one is, natural thing is take a log. Second one is you take a logit, but logit not of this one quantity, just divide by 0.5. 0.5 is more likely it has to do with the middle point was chosen for something. So this works better for us. So, and then we have the H3 is this, and H4 is this. So these are the four transformations that we chose. In some way, this can be, they are the natural transformations. There's a meaning to it, this can be explained. And then once you have this transformation, what you need to do here is test how these transformations are doing. To test it, you have to test the normality test. So transformation H is no transformation. And then H1, H2, H3, H4. Now remember, we had outliers in the two tails, so we deleted those. So we go from the 50 to 75 only. And then also we had all those, every observation has duplicates, and then we have 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, like that. So we average it. So once you average it, then it becomes more smoother distributions. So these are the, so most of the time for H1, except the sum in the middle here, it's like normality. Okay, quick quiz. The data is normally distributed. P-value should be less than 0.05 or greater than 0.05. So when you test for normality, most of the time you are looking for the p-value should be less than 0.05, right? That's not the case here. When you are testing for normality, you want to have the p-value higher. This is the time where you need the p-value to be higher, not the lower. Okay. So most of the time, here's so we have the 10 times, it's higher than this. Here is 20 times, here is 16, here is 9, and here is 9 times 1. So in this setting, H1 transformation, 77% of the times normality was accepted. Whereas in other cases, 38% and 62 and 35 and 35. Right? So that's why we chose to go that H1 is the model that we are going to use to build the prediction model. Now, we proposed a method. So now we reduce the dimension, we come up with some transformation. Now we need to come up with a prediction method. How do we predict who is case and who is control? So to do that, because we have only one training set, we have only one data set. So what we have to do is we have to split the data set into two parts. One is training and one is test set. So you have N1 plus N2, and then you have K measurements for each samples, such as K measurements for each sample. K measurements is the temperature points, 45, 46, 47, things like that. So and then we have a, let Y and X be the response variable, covariate vector. Y is the HC, the heat capacity, excess heat capacity, and X relates to the temperature, and G is the group that you want to classify 0 and 1. So to do that, if I want to classify it, if I fit any model, and I want to see, here I say that the compute 95% quantile of residuals at each time point using n observations from all samples for both groups by this model. So we fit a model like this. This is a simple regression model. We fit a regression model, right? And then what I want to do here is, I want to look for the extreme cases. So then I have the residuals. Now the extreme residuals should be able to tell me that extreme residuals are one is case and one is control. So that's why we use these extreme residuals to come up with the way to classify it. Fit the regression model 1 using the observation from, you have the whole data set. You fit this model and you come up with the residuals. Based on residuals, you come up with the quantiles values for the residuals. That explained in the next slide. Here the residuals Q1, Q2, Qk, this is one. And then from the then you have the M1 and M1 from N1 and M2 from N2. So you split the samples into two. You take the M1 and M2, and based on this one, based on M1 plus N2 samples, fit the regression model. Once you fit the regression model, then this is the crux of the things. What here we are doing here is, we are trying to predict, we are trying to see which residuals are higher and which residuals are lower, and for how many. So we have a I is equal to 1 to k. Suppose 29 data points are there, 29 temperature points are there. So on each specific time points, I am counting how many times it exceeds the Qi. Qi is the residual, that's like the tail end. If something belongs to the two group probability belongs to the same group, they are similar. So I'm looking for the extreme values, where the extreme value is. So this has to be higher than Qi. If it's higher than Qi, and I'm looking for the j is equal to g. So one case is a control, another case is case. One case is will be very many, too many of them higher than Qj, in other cases it will not be there depending on the situations. So based on this, you take a vote, because here's the number of these ones, and based on this one, you compute the average this and average this, and classify the samples if this one is greater than this, otherwise to control group. So we are combining kind of this is a very robust procedure, because we not only used one time points but all temperature time points we used, and then we took the voting based on that one to predict which is case, which is control. Anybody has any question? Hey, should we stop and you all want to grab your pictures so that mind is fresh for further? What do you suggest? Should I continue or let everybody grab the pictures?
Yeah, you can continue. They'll get it after you're done.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can go on for another couple hours.
Everybody will go hungry.
I'll be eating back here. I'm okay.
Alright. Okay. So the simple model that we fit. So we said we reduce those the times, and then you have to come up with an innovative way of data modeling also. So we define the Ti, T1, T minus, this is kind of a mean temperature between all those the range values. And then I divide by this one, 25 temperature values are there. So I define the Ti is this one. And then T1 is this, and the Ti is, I did the T1 to the power I. Why am I doing power? Because when you look at the graph, it's more like a polynomial. It's more like a polynomial, so I can fit the few degree terms are there. 2 and first degree is here, and the second degree and third degree and fourth degree polynomials. Plus also I need to put the interaction terms. So when I put because my focus is I want to have a precise model for the prediction of this G, so I put this interaction with the G as well. And based on this model, I see which is my best fit model, and from there I drop some terms, I may want to keep some. For example, G times T2 was excluded from the model because of the insignificance. So it was not significant, so that's why we did it. So everybody knows why did we do this transformation? So T is like your X covariate. Okay. Now if you are looking for a good, if you do not have a natural cutoff, it's good to center that X. Center that X. To where to center is, it's kind of a mean here. We did this is the mean value, and then we divide by something. So it's kind of become a scale. So it doesn't throw too much weight on the power and other things. Otherwise if you just T by itself, if you do T to the power 4, that becomes too large a value. So this way it's more like it's bounded, and the model fits better. So here we have the different coefficients there. The overall, it's significantly different, and all of these ones are significantly different. And R square is 96%. R square 96% is almost perfect fit. Because we went with those the polynomials, we centered it. That's why we have the perfect fit. When you have perfect fit, I know the prediction can be good too. So we have, for that data set, n is equal to 97 and n is equal to 29. So 50 to 75, k is equal to 26. So now here's your true cases, because true 20 and the true, we chose the 60 of them, and the 60 classified 20 over 20, we are very much correct, 100%. Here is almost 100%, and these are the things. So this is how we are able to predict. When we use the eye relief method, this was not a good, this didn't do good to this data set. Now, this is how you put the things there. So you have a classification rate 96.7%, and I relief it's a 73% only, and then we put these confidence intervals. Confidence intervals we generated using the bootstrap samples. So that we have a data there from the same data set. You do the bootstrap sampling, and from the bootstrap sampling you do the predictions again and again and again, and then construct the confidence intervals for this classification rate. Same thing for the sensitivity. Here you have sensitivity is 100%, I relief gave you 50%. The specificity is 95%, this one gives you 85%. And then the positive predictive value is so large here, and negative predictive value is so large here, whereas this is so less. So we drastically improved from this method. So now that's about the two-group comparison. Now we have funding from the Kentucky Lung program to expand this one, the lung cancer population and the multiple group comparisons. So that's where I have my students, Sudesh Srivastava is involved, and a few other people are involved, and we are trying to develop the methods to do the 3-group comparisons. So in this case again, let me briefly describe about the 3 groups. So far, anybody has any questions so far? Are you all on board? Alright, good laugh. So here we have the data collected, as I said, 0.1 degree centigrade intervals over the temperature of 45 to 90, leading to 451 data points, 97 samples normals, 39 lung cancer, and 39 the cervical cancer, and 30 lung cancer. And we have the 166 samples with this many observations. Duplicate observations were averaged to get a single measurement, and the negative or 0 HC values were found to be below 48 degrees centigrade and 76 degrees centigrade, which were discarded from all data sets. So now we have 29 data sets. Now once you discard all those things, now these are your 3 groups, normal, and then you have this cervical and the lung. Now based on these graphs, can you say who belongs to which group? You can. But it's nice to give this picture, because then you see what's the problem you are really dealing with. Because from this one, I want to say that who belongs to which group. And then we did from each time points, we have these all the data points put it together there. So based on the 3 group, we just modified. The rule here is we have the j is equal to 0, 1, 2. So we expanded to the 3 group. Same model, similar model you fit there, and then you do for 0, 1, 2. But to do 0, 1, 2, first what you do here is, first we classify samples to groups 1 or 2. So we are more interested 0 versus 1 or 2. If this one is greater than this and this one is greater than this, then so we are differentiating 0 versus 1 and 0 versus 2. So 1 and 2 combined. That's one classification we do. And after we define who is 1 and 2, within that one we define who is 1 and 2 separately. So we said you are 1 or 2, and then now I'm going to use a further rule to say, well, are you 1 or are you 2? So this is kind of a hierarchical way of classifying 0 versus 1 or 2, and then 1 versus 2. In this case, what we did here is the 70% complete data set were used for the training. So we used the 70 versus 30%. 70% used for the training data set and the 30% for the test data set. Again, when you do all those things, you should find out the normality. So we did all those transformations, and we found that the second transformation is still, this is the one. In this case, this transformation gives you 62%, so we went with this one. And then here are your models. So the regression model from all 166 was fitted based on this. And then here we have a, because we average it to the not the 62.5 or 62 over 28. And then what you see there is all these p-values are significant except T4 times group. One option is you can drop this or you can leave it there. Now here, if you increase the number of points, R square is still very good, it's 93%, is very good. So what we are telling is, we are able to fit the data really well based on this model. So then, so you have two groups. Now in the test set, we are going to predict it. So you have 0, 1 and 2. So 29 out of 29 we are able to predict the normals. Then you have the one group and then you have the other group. So this is the true and this is the predictor. So this is what we got. The overall accuracy is 92% with the confidence intervals of this one. And the other things that we are able to estimate. This was the three group comparison, straightforward. Any question? Okay. We are still working on method for the three group classifications. Still there are some more things to put in there. So we are still working on. Here we got 92% accuracy by using the 70% as a training data set. There is still a scope to improve in this one. So there is another one is leave one out of the 10-fold class validation. So there are different other things that we can change here to see what is the effect, how robust it is. Is a 60-40 combination is good, or it's a 50-50 combination is good because sample size is small. So see what we can do here. Also what we did here, we compare 0 followed by 1 and 2. Somebody else can do differently. 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, 0, 2, 0, 1, etc. Right? Now what we could do here is, we can take, once we classify who belongs to what, whatever the reference point you start with, eventually you say that this individual is normal, this individual is cervical cancer, this individual lung cancer, right? So based on these different starting algorithms, we can take the mode of that one. So once I start from 0, what I get for three groups. When I start from 1, what I get for these three groups. When I start from 2, what I get for these two groups. So we have these combinations, right? From there I can take a mode of it and then I can say that irrespective where I start, this is what the prediction is. But we have not worked on these things yet. There is some future work that I'm proposing here that we will do. Finding better ways to calculate the threshold values at each temperature data point. So right now, we define those the rules. You have the residuals, based on the residuals. If it's greater than this one type, then that's what it is. But basically, I should be able to say what the QI should be exactly. If I wanna, because the focus is take it to the real field. We get the blood samples, based on the blood samples, run through this machine and give the signatures, right? Based on that one, if I have a large sample of data, suppose you have I have a 2,000 samples are there. From there, my QI estimates will be very, very robust. Based on those QI, I can come up with a threshold for each temperature values. Like your QI is this for this temperature, and then we can say that for sure. Probability is very high that you belong to this group or that group. So another option is, can we come up with a distribution? Rather, for each those temperature values, can I say that what distribution one could have? So rather predicting the threshold values, predict the distribution for each individual, and then from there use the distribution. Constructing the confidence intervals for the three group comparison is still challenging and we are working on it. Efficient implementation of the proposed methodology, as I said about, if you have a different way of the starting point 0, 1, 2, 2, 1, 0, things like that, how do we do it? Comparing the proposed methodology with the other classification methods such as the Canon is very commonly used. So in this case, all those 29 temperature points are not independent, they are correlated, that's why the model fits better. But if I use a Canon Kn, you take the different characteristics that could be very unrelated based on that when you predict it, see what we can get based on that. And then this is what our plan is to compare. Here are, we set this one, you saw this table, they help us. Here are some references. Most of the work we presented that's already published here. And thank you.
Okay, are there questions for the speaker? Yes, Dr. Kopacek.
Very nice talk. I don't know much about calorimetry, so it's very interesting. So it seems like it's a non-specific method of looking at changes in protein profiles in the blood, which I guess would be able to detect some cancers, as you showed. Are there other diseases that also affect these protein profiles, and could that complicate if you're trying to detect cancer and somebody else has some other conditions that also changes these protein levels?
That's a very good point. Nicola has a data set for other diseases as well. So the idea is, from the normals, if you can predict from normal versus abnormal, irrespective of what disease you have, that's a good enough signature. So two group classification, normal versus others, if you can do it, that's very good use. This signature type of piece is also, if you may recall, there was a guy here, his name was Panchappa Keshan. He was in, I think, mechanical engineering, right, somewhere?
Yes.
Okay, so we had worked on his data set. He was trying to do here is similar signatures he was measuring to, where we are trying to differentiate between the HER2 positive, HER2 negative in the breast cancer cell lines. We have on the CTCs, so we have come up with the classification methods for that one too. But these things are very, from a statistics point of view, it's very challenging to do it, but from the technical lab point of view, it's also good application.
Okay, well, let's thank our speaker. It's a wonderful presentation. Please take some pizza.